In this lesson, we'll cover using linked CAD files, specifically setting up the architectural elevations. So in previous lessons, we discussed using Revit as a central file to actually link 2D CAD files into. For example, floor plans. Maybe you have individuals working on 2D floor plans in their CAD tool, or elevations. Now, in a previous lesson as well, we looked at importing our 2D CAD file floor plans. We linked them to the Revit project and associated them to a level. So the floor plan DWG file, or CAD file for level 1, or floor 1, is actually sitting on level 1. Same thing with level 2, level 3, and level 4. The model you're looking at on your screen has two floor plans, one for level 1 and one for level 2, and they're both DWGs. So if you change your view to a 3D view by clicking the house on the top of the screen, you can actually see right now that this is two flat 2D files. They're two CAD files, but they're the actual DWGs. To see them and how they're inserted, click the Insert tab and then click Manage Links. Then click CAD Formats. Here you can see the two floor plan DWG files that are loaded in. Now, the first one, level 1, is associated to level 1 in my CAD file. Level 2 is associated to level 2. Go ahead and cancel that insert box. So the next step after you bring in your floor plans would be to bring in 2D elevations, if they exist. Now, the 2D elevations for this exercise are going to be the exterior elevations. So we want to place them around the exterior of the building. For example, our north elevation, our south elevation, east and west. So let's go back to our plan view. Just close this 3D view. And the one we're going to focus on first is the north elevation. It sits at the top of the actual model, or at the top part of your screen. That'll be our north elevation, and I'll zoom into that. Now, the elevation we want to align to a plane. For example, the floor plans, when we brought them in, we dropped them on a level. That would be the plane that it sits on, the flat surface. But these elevations are vertical, so they can't sit on a plane or a floor plan plane or a level. But they can attach to a grid line. In the previous exercise, we created grid lines using the DWG grid lines as a blueprint or an outline of what we did. So our elevation for our north side of the building, we're going to associate to grid line A. That's going to be our plane that we'll place this elevation on so it's vertical. So to do that, let's first go to our north elevation. Double-click north. Now, if the crop is on or the region is cropped, you can disable the crop and disable the viewing of the crop region by the two icons on the bottom of your screen. Now what we see here are two levels, level 1 and level 2, and we see our grid lines. These are all Revit details that we've added at some point. And we want to insert in our north elevation on this view. But first we must tell Revit that we want to insert it on a plane that's in line with grid line A. So to do that, go to the Architecture tab on your ribbon. All the way to the right, click Set. This is going to allow you to set a work plane. Now the work plane we're going to define by name. So click Name, and then in the drop-down, choose Grid A. This is going to allow me to insert the CAD file that I'm inserting next on Grid A. Click OK. Now we're ready to insert. So we'll make sure we're in the correct view for north elevation because this is where we want to place it, and it's going to be linked into the plane of Grid A. So let's go to the Insert tab. On the Insert tab, click Link CAD. Then simply browse to where you save the files on your computer for Chapter 5. It should be under the C drive, Learning Revit Structure 2015, Chapter 5. Then we'll choose the Elevation North DWG. You can see a pictorial of it on the right. As for the settings on the bottom, verify colors are black and white, levels are all, import units are auto detect. Uncheck mark correct lines. Positioning will leave it center to center. Now, one note on the positioning, if it doesn't totally come in aligned, we'll use the Align tool to actually align it. And then place it level 1. Again, it should be level 1 that it's sitting on, but if it doesn't actually come in that way, we can align it with our Align tools. And then orient the view. Click Open. This will bring in that north elevation sitting in this view on the plane of Grid A. Now zoom in, and I can see we have a few discrepancies right now. For example, the actual grid numbers from the imported file do not match my grid numbers in my Revit file. So let's use the Align tool to correct those. So go to the Modify tab on the ribbon, click Align on the Modify panel. Now when using the Align tool, the first thing you want to click is what's correct, what you're aligning to. So my grid bubble, the number 1 on the right, that's the one I created in the Revit project, that one is correct. So I'm going to select it. Little dashed line is appearing from it as a reference. Now what I'll do is click the grid 1 bubble from the imported in elevation DWG file. And that's the bold one up toward the top, and I'll mouse over it. Go ahead and click that. That moves the entire elevation over onto grid 1 of my Revit file. Now you can lock these so they can stay locked if you want to. In this example, I'm not going to lock these. Now I'm still in the Align tool, and I'm staying in the Align tool because if I look at my floors, entry level 01 should actually be in line with level 1. It's not, so I need to adjust those as well. So same scenario, I'm in the Align tool. If you closed out of the Align tool, just select the Align tool again and click what is correct first, or what you're aligning to. So that's my level 1 in the Revit project. So I'll select it. Again, a reference dashed line appears. Now pick the entry level from the inserted in or linked in DWG file. That will move up and place it in line with level 1. Again, you could lock it using the padlock. Now, one thing I probably should do is if the floor 02 is correct at 3,800 millimeters, roughly 12 foot 6 inches, I should change my level 2 to 12 foot 6 inches. So those two equal each other or they're matched. And if I wanted to do that, I could simply end the Align tool, double click on the 10 feet, and key in 12 foot 6 inches. And then those will align with each other. Now, I technically don't have to align those. I just need to actually key in the correct dimension. Now, this looks pretty good. If I zoom back out, at least from the north elevation, it looks aligned. Let's look at our 3D model. So click the 3D view on the very top for default 3D view. And we're almost there, except the elevation that we brought in, the DWG, is not sitting on the grid line A. Should be over here. So we need to align it to that. And it's a lot easier to do in a side elevation, such as the east or west, than it is here. So let's go to the east elevation by double-clicking east in the project browser in the lower left and zoom in. So I could see the tall vertical line in the middle. If you hover over that, you'll actually see that it's the imported in DWG elevation. We need to move that or align it with grid line A. So again, let's use the Align tool. Go to the Modify tab. In the Modify panel, click Align. Again, select what we're aligning to first. So it's grid line A from my drawing. Now when you hover over this reference in the middle, it doesn't matter what part of it you pick. The entire reference will be selected. So just go ahead and click it, and it moves the entire thing over. Now we're done with the Align tool, so click Modify in the upper left or simply click the Escape key. So now this should be aligned. So let's go back to our 3D view. And in our 3D view now, we can see that this inserted in or linked in DWG elevation file is correctly sitting on the outside of the actual floor plans. And the floor plans are sitting in here as well. Now the next steps would be to go around the building and link in the other elevation files, the DWGs. And the process is really the same. Select a plane on which you're going to insert that in, one of my grid lines, so I could use J or 1 or 11 as being the outermost grid lines, and then insert that DWG into the actual elevation plan, and then use the Align tool to align it. So as a review, in this lesson, we looked at using linked CAD files, specifically architectural elevations. We talked about in previous lessons, we're using Revit as a central file to link in AutoCAD 2D drawings that may be of floor plans and elevations, where multiple users may be creating those 2D CAD files, but you can't see them in a 3D environment. Here, we were able to link in a previous exercise, 2D floor plans to our actual levels. And then in this exercise, we linked in our 2D elevations to an actual elevation on the side of the actual building or floor plan.